You are now listening to the Dynasty Rewind.
Welcome back to the Dynasty Rewind, everybody. This is a comparison mock draft. It's the final mock draft Monday before the NFL draft. And if you are finding your way here, thank you for watching. If you're not subscribed, just head on over and hit that subscribe button. Helps us out greatly. I'm your host, Michael Bauer. You can find me on Twitter at RewindCEO. And joining me, we have Nate Christian. Nate, how are you tonight?
I'm excited. I made my mock draft today, and it was a little bit harder than I expected, but I'm excited to share it. It's going to be so fun Thursday.
All right. And we also have Bob Van Duzer. Bob, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing well. Always ready to get into another mock draft.
Yeah, you guys love them mock drafts. So I'm just going to be moving things along tonight. The guys did all the legwork, and here I am just hosting. So let's kick it off. Who we want to talk about first? Pick one on the clock.
Well, it's the Jaguars on the clock.
Is it okay if I keep that up there?
Yeah, just I'm just going to move myself over here.
Okay.
Jaguars on the clock, 101. I mean, I think Bob and I probably have the same pick here. So,
Yep.
It's Trevor Lawrence. Yeah. Not too much to talk about. We love Trevor Lawrence. He's pro ready. He's a guy that you can see have a very long career. So, pretty easy pick here.
Yep, 100% agree. And I think moving on to number 2, I think we're probably going to be in agreement again. I got Zach Wilson. I think he's probably one of the higher upside quarterbacks in this draft. Great arm talent, great, relative rushing upside, not great. Not as great as the coming quarterbacks we'll talk about. But I think it's, with all the smoke around him going to New York, it seems they really like him. He's chatting up, Mark Sanchez about what it's like to be a New York Jet quarterback.
Probably not the best guy to talk to about that, but I digress. I mean, in all fairness, he did go to 2 AFC championship games, so.
It's true. He was moderately successful as an NFL quarterback.
I'm going to take.
Could have been worse.
Could have been.
So I do want to just clarify, just because you guys are saying this is where you think that they're going, that doesn't necessarily mean that you think these players are better than others. This is just how you're anticipating the draft going, correct?
Yep.
Okay. And I think it's important to also say that when we're talking about things in terms of fantasy aspect as well, just because, we like a player better than others. This guy might be more talented. We like this guy because of this situation. So I think that's important here, just like in your rookie drafts as well. So we're now on pick 3, correct?
Yep.
That is correct. This is where it gets exciting.
All right. Go ahead, guys.
All right. So the 49ers are on the clock. They traded up for this pick. They're taking a quarterback. I got a notification today saying they decided on which quarterback they're taking.
You got that too.
I think that quarterback is Justin Fields.
Okay.
I think it's Justin Fields. Justin Fields has been working with Kyle Shanahan for the past 2 years at a quarterback camp in the offseason. Justin Fields offers something different than Jimmy G. Justin Fields is ready to come in and create an offense around him. It'd be so exciting. Kyle Shanahan has so much to work with if it's Justin Fields. I think there's just a whole bunch of smoke around, but I think it's Justin Fields, and it's a no-brainer for them.
I 100% agree with you there, Nate. I got Justin Fields at 3 as well. I think if there is a discussion we have, I think it's between Fields and Lance more than it is Jones, to be honest with you. And, talking about favorite quarterbacks, Justin Fields is my quarterback 2 in this class. And I think I would pretty much whoever goes to the 49ers is probably, unless it's Mac Jones, I think would be my QB2 for fantasy as well. Even if Zach Wilson ends up falling to number 3, I think I would lean towards him as my number 2. Right now, my number 3. No, I think this pick there's so much smoke around this pick. Justin Fields has been, beaten and battered with the negative publicity leading up to the draft. And I think on draft night, we'll finally have the clarity that we want, seeing him drafted number 3.
Man, I just hope it's not going to happen. It happens every year that whoever's on the first pick, they take like the entire clock to make their pick, and it's so annoying.
why you got to do that?
But like, I just wish we could go ahead and get the first 2 picks done, get that 20 minutes of just wasted time out of the draft, and just go ahead and start with like the 3rd pick. Like, man, I gotta stay out at Buffalo Wild Wings all night Thursday watching the draft. If we can just get rid of those extra 20 minutes I don't need, can we please do that?
Yeah, we'll be saving Nate some money.
Yeah,
Because stay
I
there
mean,
for-
it's half price wings on Thursdays, but like, that's a lot of wings, man.
you can only eat so many. I mean, I ate 10 wings.
Except I'm gonna be there for like 5 hours, so I'll be hungry again by the time I start ready to leave.
Just space them out. Pretty good. So, are you guys good on pick number 3?
Yep.
All right, so let's move on to pick number 4, and that is the Atlanta Falcons.
All right, so this is probably where Bob and I start to differ, and quite honestly, because I had a trade here and Bob didn't. So I have the Broncos trading up. I don't have an exact package to tell you. I'm not going to try to project what a trade package is for the NFL because it can be ridiculous. It can be a value. We never know. It just depends on the emotions and the negotiations. But they're moving up. I don't think Drew Lock is the answer. So the Broncos move up to 4 and they pick Trey Lance. Elway gets his guy.
Okay. Are we saying that Drew Lock is the placeholder for Trey Lance? Or are we talking Trey
Open
Lance?
competition.
Open competition from day one. Okay, because the funny thing is a lot of people said that Atlanta would be the perfect spot for Trey Lance, sit behind Matt Ryan for a year, possibly 2. But here you go. The quote-unquote perfect spot for him is now being moved out. So this is interesting. Bob, thoughts?
So what's really interesting about this pick for me is I actually have the Broncos taking a quarterback at pick 9. And that quarterback, spoiler alert, is Mac Jones. But with my pick at 4, I'll get into that first. I'm looking at Kyle Pitts here. There's a lot of smoke around that right now. I'm not huge on the pick. Honestly, it's like I said, this is more of a predictive pick than a what they should do or what I think would be, most beneficial to their team. Personally, I think they should go corner or they should go edge. But Kyle Pitts would really open up that offense and be really interesting. I think, Arthur Smith, new head coach, is going to be looking for an offensive weapon to get into the game. Another offensive weapon, I should say, and really make that offense as dynamic as you can right off the rip. But yeah, touching back on why I think, and usually how I do these instead of doing trades is I slide the quarterback to wherever they're going to go. And then it's like, hey, this is like a positional where I think they're going to go, not necessarily the pick number they're going to go. But the reason I think Mac Jones, to touch on that right away, is I think the Broncos system is the reason why they go with him is they want somebody steady Eddie at the quarterback position. And I don't think Trey Lance or Drew Lock provide that. I think Vic Fangio wants to run a very, like I said, steady Eddie kind of offense, steady Eddie, win with defense, win with the ball on the ground, win with, quick running plays with Pat Shurmur as the OC. And so that's why I think that. But again, I think this is the pick that Denver would trade up for as well. I just think they'd get a different quarterback.
Bob, I will say, if you say that they want to run the steady Eddie offense, then the offense that they have right now is not built for that. They're built for a pass-first offense, in my opinion. Melvin Gordon's getting older. There's no real competition for him on the ground as of right now, where we're sitting with a few days before the NFL draft. So, to me, actually, this screams everything but. Bob, I'm sorry. I know you told me to just host and move things along.
No, you're good. No, I'm happy. No, that's you make a great point there, and I think
I usually do. Thank you.
Steady Eddie is the wrong terminology there. I think what I want to say is more of a reliable passer, somebody who's going to make the right throws, make the right decisions, not throw stupid passes into traffic, throw over receivers. And to me, Mac Jones is, as accurate as a QB in this class. A lot of the big knocks on him was that, he's throwing to wide open receivers, this and that. And it's Jesus. And with him, it's more like, he's throwing to spots, and that's what you do in the NFL. You throw to spots and tight windows as opposed to, because if you're throwing at a guy, you're going to miss him 100 times out of 100. You want to rely on where the receiver is going to be to your throw and all that. And I think Mac Jones does that at a really high level, and I think that's a pretty underrated part of his game where, I saw several throws, regular occasions that it's just like there's no way anybody else would have caught that ball that he threw other than his teammate. And granted, he's throwing to Devonta Smith and Jalen Waddle. Okay,
helps.
cool. But at the end of the day, it's like you still got to make the throw. So for me, like I said, I like Mac Jones at Denver, and I think you, with the complement of weapons you have around him, that's similar to Alabama in that, he has all the support around him, whereas I think depending on where he might go otherwise, not as great of a supporting cast. And also the disrespect to Royce Freeman is disgusting, by the way.
Well, that being said, the Broncos they could surely pick up a complimentary back later on in the draft too.
They got Mike Boone. Why do they need anybody else?
So let's move on to pick number 5 then. And
I will say I don't have any more trades, so it makes it a little bit easier for the comparison mock. That was my one trade. I just feel like the Falcons are going to be moving back.
Okay. A lot of people are saying that the Patriots are going to trade up and take a quarterback, but it's not a very
doesn't seem like a Belichick thing.
It's not a very Patriots thing to do. Bob says that, but he didn't put one in this mock. But you could hit him up on Twitter at @BobVan_IDP, and he'll tell you all about it. And we'll move on to pick number 5, and that is the Cincinnati Bengals, picking in the top 5 for the second consecutive year. Tell me what you guys think.
Go ahead, Bob.
I am sticking to my guns, and I'm saying Penei Sewell, offensive tackle out of Oregon. Please protect Joe Burrow. Save his leg. Save his head. Let's prevent it from getting knocked off his body, and let's make it so he can actually throw to whatever receiver they draft in round 2.
I'm right there with you. I think Sewell is the pick. It's not like a super deep wide receiver class. I mean, it kind of is, but like it's also not at the same time if you really dig into it. But they don't need to grab a guy here. It just doesn't make sense. Joe Burrow can't throw the ball to anybody if he's on the ground. So you got to protect him. He's coming off the ACL injury. You got to do it. You got to be smart, because teams that pick top 5 wide receivers, it's not like it constantly works out. If you pick a top 5 tackle, though, it usually works out.
Yeah, protect your long-term investment at quarterback for the next decade. Makes much more sense than a guy that realistically you could have drafted in the next round, possibly, or someone of a similar skill set. So we're going to move on. You guys are in unison on that one. Let's go to the Miami Dolphins at number 6, pick that they swapped with from the Philadelphia Eagles. And Nate, let's start with you on this one.
All right. So this one, I'm going to tell you guys, I did my mock draft on pff.com. And you know how after you do your mock draft, it gives you a grade for each draft pick? Mm-hmm. It's like A, B, if you get a C, you're kind of like, oh, that was a bad pick. PFF rated this pick an F. And I would kind of agree that it's not a great pick, but I think it's going to surprise everybody. This is kind of wild. I think the Dolphins at number 6 go with Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. We saw it last year. Henry Ruggs, first wide receiver off the board, over CeeDee Lamb, over Jerry Jeudy, over Justin Jefferson. This year, NFL loves speed, and they have Preston Williams, who's okay. I'm not saying Preston Williams is incredible. Preston Williams is there. They have Devontae Parker, who also is not incredible, but those two guys are those big-bodied receivers. Getting a guy like Jamar Chase, yes, he's talented, but from a team-building perspective, I think you could probably go Jamar Chase, but I think, they're looking for something to stretch the field with Tua. Jalen Waddle, he's played with Tua. I can see them going after the speed here, and a guy that they might think is like the next Tyreek Hill, something that can be a playmaker on both, offense and special teams. The NFL loves speed, and we see it time and time again where they draft speed. Jalen Waddle has a chance to be the first wide receiver off the board, and it sounds crazy, and it is crazy, but it's possible.
All right, so Bob, I want your rebuttal, keeping in mind that the Dolphins do pick a 18th as well. I was on a podcast last week, and I said that Waddle would be a good spot. Miami would be a good spot for Waddle. I feel like they might be able to get him at 18, but Bob, what are your thoughts?
So with Waddle at 6, I don't hate it. I'm surprised PFF gave you such a bad grade for that. They usually really overvalue like fast wide receivers that can stretch the field. but I don't hate it. I went wide receiver as well. I think there is a need at the position. Preston Williams, I liked him a lot coming out of college. He was one of my favorite, under the radar guys. And Devontae Parker, I don't think he's it. I think he's a placeholder for something better. I went with Jamar Chase. I think a true alpha would be beneficial for Tua. And to be dead honest, I'm surprised you didn't go Devonta Smith, personally. But I went with Jamar Chase. I think he's, just the way that he's tested and shown that I don't think there's glaring question marks around him like there is with Jalen Waddle and like there is with Devonta Smith with his size, Waddle's health concerns, if there are really any. So, I mean, that's where I went. I think Jamar Chase is the big concern was a 2020 opt-out, but he was able to show up at his pro day and absolutely crush. So that's where I went with this pick.
Yep.
All right, perfect. Let's move on to pick number 7, and that is the Detroit Lions. So, Bob, we're going to start with you on this one. I'm going to step out for just a minute, but I'll be back, and you guys, please talk.
Sure. All right, so I went with probably a slightly boring pick here. I went with Rashawn Slater out of Northwestern. I think this is more of a kind of a setup for the future pick. They need to build that O-line because it is, with the pieces they've already lost this offseason and the pieces they lost the previous season, it's really depleted, and it's really going to start to show when you have Jared Goff back there, who's not, in my opinion, nearly the quarterback that Matt Stafford was. I could see them going wide receiver here. I didn't like any of the wide receivers they had available. They could use an alpha. I don't see Devonta Smith as a true alpha, and I don't see Jalen Waddle, who's still on my board, as a true alpha. If Jamar Chase is here, I think it's a smash pick. But I really think, try to find a way to protect Goff, and find ways to get the ball to Quintus Cephas and
Whoever they pick round 2.
Williams, whoever they pick round 2, and hopefully Hawkinson and Swift more than anything. I have too many shares of those guys. But I'm curious to see where you went with this pick, because this is kind of an interesting spot in the draft, in my opinion, where, we're really kind of with needs versus what's there for the teams. I think Detroit's actually a team that could trade back and accrue picks. They're one of, between Detroit and Atlanta, they're probably my 2 favorites to trade back. So I'm curious to hear your thoughts on where they're at.
Yeah, so in my mock draft, Jamar Chase is still on the board. So as you said, it's a smash pick. You replaced Kenny Galladay with Jamar Chase. And while they're not the same player, Jamar Chase is probably just about as good at 50-50 balls, contested catches as Kenny Galladay. Jamar Chase is an incredible prospect. There was something came out that he's the consensus wide receiver 1 across the NFL. We'll see if that's true come Thursday. But he's definitely one of the top receivers the past couple of years come out. So I think if he's there for the Lions, like you said, smash pick. You don't have to think about it.
All right, so the wide receiver 1 doesn't mean that he's going to be the first wide receiver taken off the board, just like a lot of people last year thought it was Jared Jeudy. Henry Ruggs went first. So, yeah, that's how it goes, man. It's all about how the NFL sees a player. So you guys good with pick 7?
Yep.
Good.
Moving on to pick 8, we have the Carolina Panthers. Nate, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so this is a fun pick for fantasy football. I'm going with Kyle Pitts here. He's still on the board in my mock. Kyle Pitts to the Joe Brady offense. Whew. I mean, come on. Sam Darnold throwing to Kyle Pitts and DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson. I love it. I think they grab a wide receiver probably late day 2, early day 3 as well, because the Joe Brady offense runs with 3 wide receivers almost all the time. So, yeah, that's just if he's there for the Panthers, it just makes too much sense. You traded for Darnold, you picked up his 5th-year option, you surround him with all the weapons you can to see if you got a franchise quarterback.
Bob, rebuttal.
Yeah, man, I like that pick with the way your board shook out. That would be nuts. I find it hard to think that Kyle Pitts is going to slide that far. I think at worst he ends up in that 5 to 7 range. But again, with the teams that are there, it's kind of an odd area for him. I think his window is pretty much Atlanta. Then it closes for maybe Miami likes him. Maybe they want to run a 2 tight end kind of scheme like New England did in the old days, with a really weak Gesicki and then an awesome Kyle Pitts. But I went to my side of the ball, defense, and I took the first defender off the board at Micah Parsons. This would make their defense just outstanding, an outstanding young defense. They went 7 for 7 on defense last year. I wouldn't be surprised to see them keep up that trend to start this year. I think they got to start addressing offense at some point. But again, man, that offense is already pretty dang good. They could go O-line. I just took Rashawn Slater. I could see that pick if he were there. But I went Parsons, and that makes that defense with Brian Burns, now Parsons, Jeremy Chin, looking mighty
nice.
fine for IDP leagues.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so we will move along to pick number 9. That is the Denver Broncos. So, Bob, we're going to start with you on this one. And Nate, I know that you had them moving up, so your pick's obviously going to be very different. But Bob, who are the Broncos picking at number 9?
So again, I went with Mac Jones. Like I said, I think he kind of fits that kind of older style of offense where they're gonna maintain possession. They're not gonna give up the ball on wacky, dumb turnovers playing hero ball. That's not Mac Jones' game. He's more, like I say steady Eddie, but I mean it as he's secure with the ball. He's not gonna fumble for no reason. He's not gonna throw picks with overthrowing players or into silly traffic plays. And like I said, with the team around him, they beefed up the offensive line last season before the season. They put weapons around him. They got Jerry Jeudy, Cortland Sutton coming back, KJ Hamler, Noah Fant, Alberto, if you think he's
Good
anything.
offense.
It's a good, deep, well-rounded offense, and their line's good. Their running back, they could add depth in the second round, and I think that would make them, downright not scary, but it could make that offense pretty exciting pretty quick. And I think Mac Jones fits that kind of old narrative of a pocket passer that Elway has kind of looked at in the past.
Yeah.
All right, and Nate, who's actually picking here in your mock?
Yeah, so I have the Falcons picking here. They traded down with the Broncos, and I have them picking J.C. Horn as the first cornerback off the board. They need a lot of help in their secondary. We saw it last year, man. Their defense was so bad. They lost so many games because of their defense. So they need to start addressing that. I think they still have a good offense, especially if Julio Jones comes back healthy. So he started addressing that defense, and there's still a window open there for Matt Ryan. He had a sneaky good year last year, just not talking about it. He's 35, which is a bit older, but we see quarterbacks play into the early 40s now. At worst, like 38, 39, he's still got 3 years left. He's still under contract for, I believe, another 2 years. Matt Ryan is a good quarterback still. You just need a defense to support that offense because that offense is good. I like the coaching changes they made. I think they can be a really good team. They just got a little bit of work to do, but you have the veteran quarterback, so you got to find, those holes and plug them in so you can make that, playoff run if you get there. And also, I just got a notification, just want to throw this out there, that Ian Rappaport said that the 49ers are believed to have narrowed down their options at quarterback for the number 3 pick to Mac Jones and Trey Lance. So I guess Justin Fields is out, according to Ian Rappaport.
No
But the
way.
smoke screen continues, right? Because, okay. Interesting. So I'll tell you what, man, Thursday night's going to be awesome. I haven't been this exposed for a draft in a long time.
Yeah, but we're not going to find the pick out till 8:30.
Well, what time does the draft start?
8 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah.
So we might not find out till 9:30 because you know how this stuff just drags on.
Yeah.
How about that advertising money, right? So
Yeah.
are we good on pick 9? We can move on.
Yep.
All right, let's go to number 10. And we have the Dallas Cowboys hopefully picking in the top 10 for the next 10 years as well. Nate, let's start with you on this one.
Yeah, this is a bit of, I'm going to be honest, this is a bit of mock lock right here. But I have Patrick Surtain here. He just seems like a Cowboy, and pair him back up with Diggs on the outside. I like it. He just seems like a guy who's going to be a Cowboy. It just makes sense, I feel like. So, I don't think there's too much to say. He's one of the top cornerbacks. He's 1A, 1B, most people with J.C. Horn. And I just think that he kind of fits the Dallas Cowboys better. So
Bob, thoughts?
I also have Patrick Surtain, number 10. This has been a mock lock for me for quite some time. Patrick Surtain, like you said, pairing back up with Diggs, Surtain would actually profile as the one in that scenario. And the other thing about Surtain that's super underrated about his game is his tackle ability. The Cowboys were, in the bottom 5 or so in pass defense and run defense last year. Surtain addresses both of those with one pick. So I think it's a smash for them. It's good value. There was a bit out where the Dallas Cowboys actually released interview comments from J.C. Horn, actually kind of trash talking Patrick Surtain, which I thought was kind of funny, saying that he kind of takes plays off. So when you say he's a Cowboy, he is a Cowboy. But yeah, so Patrick Surtain for me is an awesome lock. Probably one of my favorite picks, honestly.
All right, so consensus on pick 10. Moving on to pick number 11, we have the New York Giants. Bob, let's start with you.
So this is another. He's still on my board. I think they have needs at wide receiver. I'm going Jalen Waddle here. I think he can kind of bring a different dynamic to that offense. They have Slayton, they have Shepard. I think Slayton's actually a pretty dang good wide receiver. I just don't think Daniel Jones is the answer at quarterback. Personally, hate me all you want. I don't think I'm wrong. So I think adding Jalen Waddle again, kind of, let's give this guy weapons if he can use them. All right. If he can't, maybe we need to reevaluate and restructure where we're going to go with this franchise. I think Joe Judge was an awesome coaching hire last year. He did a great job. So I think, they're going to want to find out quick if their quarterback's the right guy, because I think they got the right coach. Where are you at on this pick, Nate?
Yeah, so I have, my board kind of shook out differently. So Waddle's already gone, but I actually have Rashawn Slater here. I think if he falls to this far, it's kind of an easy pick. He can play outside of tackle. He can also kick inside and be an all-pro guard. He's a very safe pick, but, saying the same thing, you got Daniel Jones, you got to figure out what he is, and he's got to be protected. He has a lot of turnover issues, but also he's running away from pass rushers every play. So you got to get him some offensive line help. I think, Slater here, if he falls to 11, is a very easy pick for the Giants.
All right, and now we will move on to the third NFC East team in a row. At pick number 12, we have the Philadelphia Eagles. Nate, we'll start with you on this one.
Yeah, so I got Micah Parsons here. I just think that's another easy pick if he's still on the board. He's the top linebacker. He can fill that Nate Gary role, right?
I need a half hour.
The Eagles need help. You go best player available. I thought about a wide receiver for Hurts here, but they picked a wide receiver in the first last year. They got to help the defense out. So I think, Parsons here is a pretty easy pick if he's still there.
Okay. Bob?
Awesome pick. If Parsons was still on the board, he gets to go home, stay in PA, which is something that he said he wants to do, by the way. He wants to stay in Pennsylvania to play pro ball. I got J.C. Horn here still on my board. J.C. Horn is honestly somebody I could see go as early as number 4 to the Falcons. And I mocked him there in the last draft and kind of not got ripped to shreds for it, but I think he's super underrated in that he's probably the true shutdown corner of this class. I think that Surtain, not as much of a shutdown guy, but he is a guy that can, make some plays. And like I said, he offers a lot more in the tackle game. But J.C. Horn, I think, he'll take on number ones and he'll shut some people down. So I like that pick there for them.
As an Eagles fan, I'd be fine with either. I do want to say that last year, the Eagles were 32nd out of 32 teams in spending at the linebacker position. So they just don't spend a lot of money at linebacker. And obviously, if they drafted Micah Parsons, eventually they're going to have to pay him big money. So I don't see it happening because it's the logical pick to make. And this team does not believe in anything logical. So let's move on to the Los Angeles Chargers at pick number 13. Bob, we're going to kick it off with you.
I know there's a lot of people out there clamoring for the Chargers to pick an offensive lineman. Me personally, I don't see it as a huge need for them. They were one of the, I think bottom 10 in sacks allowed, like the good way. So like 10 least sacks allowed. Um, so they did good on that account. They protected Herbert rather well. They added Packer Pro Bowl center Corey Linsley because we decided to pay Kevin King and frickin' 48-year-old Mercedes Lewis money instead of retaining our all-pro center. I don't know why we'd want to do that. But so I went to the defensive side of the ball here, filling a need at edge for them. I went with Jalen Phillips. I've been mock locking Kwity Paye for a hot minute, but Jalen Phillips has been rising up my my fantasy board as well as my edge board in general. He's sitting at my edge 1 right now. There are a lot of injury concerns with him at this point. Not playing full seasons in college between concussions, lower extremity issues. But I think at some point you got to swing for the fence. And this guy, if he pans out in the NFL, he's going to be a huge value at 13.
Okay.
Yeah, I went with the offensive tackle here. I went Christian Darrisaw out of Virginia Tech. Got Herbert. They picked up Mike Williams' 5th-year option, so they, have 1 more year of Mike Williams. I can definitely see him grabbing a wide receiver later, but it's not a big enough need for this year to grab one in the first round, I think. Plus, I just think it's good to protect your quarterback who's young. Teams with good offensive lines win games. It helps the passing game. It helps the running game. Helps you control the clock. So it's a smart pick. I think the Chargers are a smart team. I think they're a good organization. They're starting to build a really good team around Herbert. So I think just taking the offensive tackle, if he plays left tackle, if he plays right tackle or kicks inside, it doesn't matter. You're just strengthening that line, and that's important when you have a young quarterback like Herbert, especially with all the potential he's shown. Give him time in the pocket. He's got that deep throw ability. Could be big.
All right, so let's kick it to pick number 14. We have the Minnesota Vikings, and Nate, we're going to start with you.
I think this was a bit of a reach, but I think this guy is going to be well liked by the NFL more than kind of draft Twitter, and that's Vera Tucker, the tackle out of USC.
Bob's liking it.
I love this guy, and months ago I was hoping he would drop to the Ravens, but he's getting some hype around the NFL. He can play left tackle. He can play right tackle. He can be a guard. He can play center. He's played all 5 positions for USC and has excelled at every single one. Teams love versatility, especially among the offensive line, because there's so many injuries. And you have to plug and play players, and it's not that easy to move a tackle inside midway through the season or guard to center. It's nearly impossible to just pick up and play one of those positions. It's totally different for your technique. Or even just switching a right guard to a left guard. It's very different, and it's not as easy as a lot of fans like to make it. But Vera Tucker can play every position and play them all well. If he's not a tackle at the next level, he's a Pro Bowl guard or a center. So this is a guy the Vikings take, helps their offensive line out, which then helps the rest of the offense out. And they got a lot of holes in their defense, but it's just a smart pick to make. And I think we always forget how the NFL values tackles and good offensive line. I mean, we always like to drop them in the mock drafts because they're not the sexy picks, but they're the smart picks that win games.
Yeah. And before we move on to the next pick, it makes a great point about versatility. Andre Dillard, who is the Eagles tackle, was drafted as a left tackle, and then he had to play right tackle for one game, and he was terrible. And he said, just imagine being left-handed, and now you have to write with your right hand right now. So it's a good point. You're not used to that, but versatility is great. And it also makes another good point, too, that the NFL values these players way differently than we do. And you need to pay attention to how these players are valued by the NFL. That'll help you with your rookie rankings. So let's move on to pick number 15, the New England Patriots pick here. And Nate, since
did Bob
talk?
No. I just threw a fist pump. Yeah, that's all I did.
I'm so sorry. Forgive me. Before we move on to pick 15.
No, you're good. You're good. No, I love Elijah Vera Tucker too. He's my easy interior offensive lineman 1. I watched this film, and right away, this dude is a mauler. Nate, you touched on it. The versatility is one thing, but the way this guy just handles himself as a run blocker, which will jive really well with Minnesota. Oh my Lanta. I can just see him, just bowling over Kenny Clark on a Sunday and making me sad with a Dalvin Cook long touchdown. But this guy, like I said, he will bowl people over and he will run people down. Nate hit on it real well with all the versatility, all that. I think he's an all-pro guard at the next level, honestly. Like, he is damn good and not getting the respect he deserves. And like you said, too, I think draft Twitter is going to be like, oh, what a lame pick. And it's like, well, who do you want Minnesota to draft? They're not going to go. They're not going to go wide receiver. They're not going to go tight end. They're not going to go. They could go defense, but I don't really. There's not any glaring holes. That defense actually came together pretty well last year. They could go corner. They could go corner, but I'm looking at maybe Newsom's a little early, and then you got Farley who's dealing with back issues, who might be a little early, but could take him too. They probably might be losing their first round pick corner from last year, Jeff Gladney, because he got some off-field issues going on. But I love this pick for them. Like I said, it really bodes well for the run game. And that's all I really got for Vera Tucker. I love the pick. This is one of my favorite picks of the draft.
Okay, so my apologies about that, Bob. But
You're
now
good.
we'll move on to pick number 15. That's the New England Patriots. And let's start off with you on this one, Bob, so I can make sure you talk this time.
Just got to make sure you skip Nate now. But
Okay.
so this is with all the smoke around Trey Lance at 3, this makes this an astronomical drop for me. Trey Lance falling to 15 at the Patriots. Again, like I said, I mock the team, not necessarily the pick. I think this is a scenario where they would trade up to get Trey Lance, trade up to that 8 spot. Carolina's been rumored to want to trade down, trade up to that spot so they can trade down. Belichick in a press conference last week was just talking about how, well, sometimes there's guys that start falling, and that's when you got to think about moving up. And, like guys that should be top 5 picks are sometimes back of the top 10. And he's like, that's when you have to think about moving up. So this would be kind of like that dream scenario that he almost foreshadowed without saying anything. But so for me, and I think, like I said, with the way that offense seems like they want to switch to kind of a mobile quarterback like they tried to with Newton. They tried to bring in this new offense. I think Bill has seen the success of Jackson and guys like Deshaun Watson who can, do a lot with their legs. And I think he likes that. I think he's a big fan of that game. So I think this makes kind of a new transition into a new era for New England.
All right. Nate, your thoughts?
I actually also have a quarterback to the Patriots here at 15. I think it's another guy that, like Bob said, they're probably going to have to trade up to get because he'll be falling. But I have Mac Jones here at 15. I do think that there's a possibility they're trying to move towards a mobile quarterback. But at the same time, stick with what you know. And Mac Jones could, just kind of fits that Patriots offensive scheme we've seen with Tom Brady for the past 20 years. It's obviously a different team now, and it's not exactly set up to be the supporting cast that he had at Alabama. But I think Mac Jones is a very smart quarterback. He talks about how he has a nearly photographic memory. I think Bill Belichick loves that kind of stuff. So, if Mac Jones starts dropping, I would not be surprised to see Belichick trade up into 8, like Bob said, and try to grab Mac Jones. I could also see Trey Lance. I think, quarterback is what we want to see here. They might not go quarterback, but, their biggest hole is quarterback. Cam Newton's not the answer. He's just a bridge quarterback right now.
Exactly. All right, let's move it on to pick number 16. We're about halfway through the first round now, and we have the Arizona Cardinals. Nate, let's start with you.
There's a big name that hasn't come off the board yet, and he's finally coming off the board, and this is a fun one for fantasy football. It's Devonta Smith. He should not be here, honestly. He's more talented than a 16 overall pick, but I do think wide receivers drop once we actually get to draft day. We saw it last year with CeeDee Lamb dropping. He was being mocked last year to the Cardinals, early, but dropped all the way down. And the Cowboys were like, this is good value. You got to pick him up. So I think the Cardinals do the same kind of thing here. Devonta Smith's dropped and they pick him up. Christian Kirk's on his last year of his rookie deal. Hopkins is great, But outside of that, who you're really throwing to for Kyler Murray? Devonta Smith fits that quick offense, that he can be used inside, outside, in motion, on sweeps. He's a guy that Cliff Kingsbury could just do a lot of damage with, and just really fits that offense well. Let Christian Kirk be there for more year, but Devonta Smith can be the future there across from Hopkins. So I like it a lot right here.
Are we in consensus here, Bob?
We are in consensus with Devonta Smith heading to the Cardinals at 16. I think, it's a perfect compliment to Hopkins, where he doesn't have to be the alpha right off the bat, and maybe they can use Hopkins in a few more unique ways. But I know they can find use for Devonta Smith and, move him all over the field and keep him away from press coverage if needed and whatnot. So I really like this pick, Nate.
Yep.
And just an interesting blurb here on ESPN. Of the Cardinals' past 10 first-round picks spanning over the past 10 years, 4 aren't even in the league, 5 are still with Arizona, and the other is 49ers backup quarterback Josh Rosen. I thought that was interesting to throw out. But let's kick it over to the Las Vegas Raiders. Should still be in Oakland because that's what I know them as. It's like the Chargers should still be in San Diego. Bob, who are the Raiders taking at 17?
I got them selecting Christian Darrisaw, who's still on my board out of Virginia Tech. They pretty much decided to blow up their offensive line this offseason. Darrisaw does have some versatility. I think he can play left guard, left tackle. He could probably swing to right tackle okay. I think he's a solid. I don't think he's a world beater by any means, but he is the best tackle on the board right now, in my opinion. And I think, like I said, they blew up their offensive line, and they need to do some fixing to keep that thing afloat and keep Derek Carr on his feet.
Nate, are they taking a lineman or are they taking Derek?
They're not taking a lineman. They're taking on my board. I was kind of. I think this is a weird spot where you have some top talent off the board, and you kind of have to reach for a player at this point. Darrisaw is off the board on my mock draft. So I have them actually going to Greg Newsome. It's a bit of a reach, but they need a cornerback. They need to just redo their secondary. I thought about safety, but I think they can grab a safety in the second round. Go ahead and grab one of the top cornerbacks. Farley, like we said, the back injury is just not ready to reach on him yet. But I think Newsome is a solid cornerback. He might not be having that top ceiling that Surtain or J.C. Horn have, but I think he's a guy that can fit the Raiders. And at this point, it's pretty decent pick, solid pick.
Okay, sometimes
sounds like a Raiders thing.
Yeah, solid picks are good picks. And now let's move to pick number 18. That's the Miami Dolphins. Nate, who are the Dolphins taking at 18? I know you said Jalen Waddle at 6. I could see him going here to Miami, but what are your thoughts?
So with them going wide receiver first, the Dolphins have shown that they like to build the trenches up. And I think this guy has dropped a little bit already in this draft just because of positional value. It's Christian Barmore. He's my top defensive lineman. I think he's a smart pick for the Dolphins here. Just a guy that's going to go in there and can make an impact day one. The Dolphins look like they want to have a great defense, and the defensive line helps them out here. He's a good value pick. He's a good pro-ready defensive lineman who has that pass rush ability from the inside. There was a report today that some teams are concerned about his coachability. I don't know much about that, but just throwing that out there. I did see that report today, but I do like his tape a lot. He's got some really good ability to, just destroy the pocket.
All right, Bob.
That Barmore tweet sounds like a lot of smoke to me because I've seen a lot of reports basically claiming the opposite, that he's a big team player, big team guy, big, get in there, learn, and show what he's got on the field. I love that pick. I have Barmore going a little later, but I'm sticking on the defensive side of the ball, going with Zaven Collins here out of Tulsa. With me, I actually comped him to Kyle Van Noy, who just got the boot from Miami. So I'm not huge on Collins as a prospect, but I think if he's used correctly in a scheme, he could be very good. And this is kind of a scheme where he would thrive as an outside linebacker, hybrid edge kind of a position. Like I said, and I wouldn't be wild about fantasy because Belichickian defenses have never really been awesome for IDP production. But they did do well with their linebackers last year. They did well with a couple of their edge players for streaming purposes. But for me, I like Barmore a lot here too, and I like Ben Collins here. I think it's a good spot for him.
All right, so we'll move on to pick number 19, and that's the football team. Bob, who's going to be getting selected in the first round in the nation's capital?
This is one of my favorite picks again of this draft. I'm going with Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah, linebacker out of Notre Dame, pretty much killing all of Cole Holcomb's remaining value. Sorry. JOK is arguably the best linebacker in this class, especially in terms of coverage. He's number one, bar none. With what he can do, with how they were able to run that Notre Dame defense with him pretty much lining up wherever the heck they wanted to put him, I think would add a crazy element to this Washington defense. I do worry that they wouldn't even know what to do with him. I don't think their defensive coordinator is that knowledgeable. But just imagine the front seven you'd be looking at as an opposing quarterback. Who the fuck is blitzing me? Obviously Chase and Sweat are coming. And then it's like, okay, then I got the front of all 4 first-round picks. And then, okay, now I have another first-round pick that could blitz me from anywhere. You could blitz off the edge. You could blitz off the middle. It's just a scary, scary defense to look at. And that's kind of where I went with this pick, was making that defense scary.
Yeah, I went the same place. So, I don't think I need to add anything to what Bob said. I think this is a kind of a mock lock for me. If he's there, it makes sense for the Washington football team to grab this guy. He's incredible, and like Bob said, he can blitz from the outside, the inside. You can put him out in the slot and have him blitz from out there. So you can put him anywhere.
All right. Well, if that's consensus, Nate, then why don't you kick us off? Pick 20, Chicago Bears. They need a tight end, but where are they going here?
I'm going with the offensive line. I think the tackle. The tackle part at this part of the draft, it's a little, you got to reach again. There's you're in the second, maybe top of that third tier. I don't know how you want to tier him off, but I'm going with Alex Leatherwood out of Alabama. He tested really well at his pro day. And I think he just sounds like, he just looks like and plays like a guy I think would work on the Bears. He's physical and, a guy that will solidify that offensive line. And when I've already talked about it, offensive line, it's important. It's a position that helps your run game out, helps your pass game out. They do need a wide receiver, but I think you can find one later. I don't think it's that big of a need for them. They do have Allen Robinson still. So I like Leatherwood here. I think he's got a good ceiling because of his athleticism.
All right, Bob, are we in agreement?
I also went with the offensive tackle position, but I went with Tevin Jenkins here. I'm not huge on Leatherwood. I do have him as a first rounder, but just not quite yet. I just like Tevin Jenkins a little more. With Leatherwood, I'm just not as – I agree the upside is there because he is super athletic. But at the end of the day, it's like I watched his film, and he is – I believe he played primarily right tackle. I could be wrong.
Yep. He played both sides, but I think he projects more as a right tackle.
And so, I think there's some value loss there with that position. But either which way, Chicago needs to go offensive line if they can't get a quarterback, because their offensive line was so god-awful last year. I'm not a huge PFF guy, but when they're showing me the graphics of your starting offensive line and none of them are in the top 50 at their position, what are we doing? So that's where I'm at. I'm at Tevin Jenkins.
All right, and let's move it, Bob. We're going to start off with you again. The Indianapolis Colts at pick 21. What I will say is that one thing the Colts always seem to do very well is draft. And they're a team that always drafts their foundation first. So, Bob, what are your thoughts? Pick 21, Indianapolis.
So this is an interesting pick for me now that I look back on it. I went with Christian Barmore to the Colts. I think they like to build their line. They like to build out from the trenches. And on defense, that's really, right now, probably their biggest area of need is their interior defensive line. He's not huge on run defense. Good thing that's what DeForest Buckner is for. Christian Barmore will make his money as a pass rusher. Comped him to Grady Jarrett as a prospect. Solid player, not going to blow the doors off any IDP leagues more than likely. But with this landing spot, this capital, he's going to be a day one starter guy you can slot in. Like I said, I don't see any coachability issues. He played for Nick Saban. I don't think that guy's going to put up with shit. So of all people, so I don't see that as an issue. I really like Barmore. He's my ideal one in this class. I think he's great as a pass rusher. He needs to improve in the run game, but again, that's what DeForest Buckner's for.
Nate, your thoughts?
Yep, I also have the defensive side of the ball. I'm going with the first edge rusher off the board, Kwity Paye out of Michigan. Colts are a good team. They're smart front office. They're taking, a guy with so much upside here, Kwity Paye, and, just adding to that already impressive defense.
All right, perfect. And let's stay in the division. Nate, we're going to stay with you. The Tennessee Titans pick at number 22. Does Tannehill get a receiver here?
I thought about it. I really did. But does Mike Vrabel seem like a guy who's going to spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver?
I mean, A.J. Brown was a second-round pick, and that's worked out really, really well.
I just don't see him going first-round wide receiver. So I'm going with a tackle. I'm going with Tevin Jenkins, actually. He's still on my board, and I think he's a great pick here. They just need to I think they can just continue to solidify that offensive line. They lost one of their tackles. I can't remember his name right now. I think last offseason. But
it's Jack Conklin went to the Browns.
Yes. So, just continuing to build up that offensive line. We know how they play offense. They rely on the run game and Derrick Henry. So if you have a good offensive line, that just continues to impress and they can lean on that. I did think about wide receiver, but like I said, they just don't seem like a team that's going to spend a first-round pick on a wide receiver.
Okay. And recently rejoining the crew here, we have Bob with who is your Tennessee Titans pick?
I'm rolling with Caleb Farley at this pick. Tennessee has shown time and time again that they do not give a damn about red flags. They want the best player. They drafted Jeffrey Simmons early as a D tackle a couple years back. Coming off an ACL issue, had domestic violence issues, off-field issues, red flag after red flag, and they went with him anyway. I like them picking Caleb Farley here. Fills a need. They lost Malcolm Butler. They don't really have a great backup plan there. They have Christian Fulton. But at the end of the day, Caleb Farley is already a better prospect than Christian Fulton was last year. So I like this pick a lot for them.
Bob, did you know that the Jets have 2 first-round picks this year? And you could tell us who they're taking at number 23.
Yeah. I'm going to roll with, we just talked about him, Kwity Paye. Goes to another edge needy team. Goes to the tutelage of Robert Saleh, who I think is one of the best coaching hires this offseason. His run defense, which is something they really pride themselves on having, is top notch. One of the best run defenders in this class at any position. And then you pair that with he's got some rushing upside, but that's not really his game right now. But he definitely has the tools to improve upon that.
All right, Nate.
Yep, I'm also going edge. Kwity Paye's already off the board the last pick, though, or 2 picks ago. So I'm going with Jalen Phillips here, another really good edge player. And it's just a guy that can, a lot of the same things that Bob said. They need edge. They can slide a guy like Jalen Phillips right into that team. The Robert Saleh defense, it should be good. I think he's a good fit here with the Jets and can be productive. So got to get the Jets back to that good defense they had with Rex Ryan when they were, teams are scared to play that defense. I think that's really what they need to get back to, and Robert Saleh was a good hire to try to get back to that.
The defense was good under Todd Bowles as well. I think Todd Bowles is a way underrated coordinator in the league as well. Nate, we're going to stick with you. We're going to stay in your favorite division. Tell me what the Pittsburgh Steelers are doing at pick 24.
Yep, I know a lot of people for fantasy football want to see a running back go here, but I'm not thinking that they do. I actually, spoiler alert, I have 0 running backs in my first round mock draft. Okay. I don't think the league values them. And like I said, what position do they value more than us? Offensive tackles. So I have Samuel Cosme here out of Texas. We go through the tackles. I mean, there's lots of tackles coming off the board, but we know how bad the Steelers' offensive line is. It's one of the reasons that Ben Roethlisberger had to throw the ball as soon as he got the snap, and that helped Deontay Johnson out a lot. But the reason they couldn't run the ball last year, I mean, James Conner was good 2 years ago, so it's not that he was bad. I mean, he was injured, but it's hard to run the ball when you're getting hit 3 yards behind the line of scrimmage. They have to improve their offensive line before they do anything else. So I think they have to go offensive line here.
Right. Bob, thoughts?
I agree with your argument. However, I don't think the Steelers are going to go offense with their first pick. They rarely do. Last year, they had traded their first-round pick for Minka Fitzpatrick, so they didn't even have one. Year before that, they select Devin Bush. Year before that, they select somebody. Year before that, they select T.J. Watt. The list goes on. Defense in the first round. I'm going with Greg Newsome here to go right into that cover 3 scheme. They have a needed corner. Their corners are depleted at best. They got a washed Joe Hayden, but that's about all they got there. So I'm going with Greg Newsome at pick 24.
All right, so Greg Newsome goes off the board at 24. Jaguars back on the clock at 25. Bob, who we taking?
So Nate touched on him already. I'm going Alex Leatherwood, offensive tackle. Again, I see the upside. I think, he could probably kick into guard. I think, especially with his athleticism, he profiles that way. Jags just need to beef up that line, help out Trevor Lawrence. They got offensive weapons. They have James Robinson, and they have, a bevy of wide receivers that are at least decent. So I think they beef up that whole line, give them some protection or at least some upside down the road at that position.
Okay, and Bob, so the 2018 first round for the Steelers was Terrell Edmonds.
See? Defense.
There we go.
There you go, defense. Nate, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm going with a safety. The first safety off the board, Trevin Moehrig. I think that's one of the biggest needs, and safety isn't the most valuable position, I think, in the draft. Usually you see these guys drop, but I think this is the spot that we start seeing them come off the board. It's a pretty good safety class this year, actually. A lot of guys, I think, that are going to be end of the first into the second round. I could see 4 or 5 safeties coming off the board by the end of the second round. So I think this is where it starts, though.
All right, so let's move to pick 26 now. Bob, I'm actually going to start with you again because I want Nate to talk about pick 27 first. So who are the Browns taking at pick 26?
So I have them continuing to beef up that offensive line and just turn that into a mauling offensive line. They're going Landon Dickerson, interior offensive lineman. They chose to reinforce the offensive line last year. I think they continue to reinvest. If you're going to be good at something, why not be great? And I think they just look to really protect Baker, give him every opportunity to succeed. I think they already have decent weapons. And honestly, with what was left on the board, I wasn't really, wild about any other position. Wide receiver for them, not a huge need in my opinion. I think if I were to make a trade down, this would be a pick I would do it with.
Okay. Nate?
Yeah, so this guy went off the board a little bit earlier in Bob's mock. So if he was still on the board, Bob might like him here to the spot. I'm going to go with Xavier Collins. He's kind of dropped a little bit too far, and I think he really is just he can do everything. He's a big linebacker who can rush the passer, who was incredible in coverage for how big he was. So he offers some versatility, and the Browns definitely need to up their not only their edge, but also their linebacker. And this guy can kind of be moved around in both. So I think he's a guy that just kind of fits that team and kind of fills 2 needs in one, so that then they can work in the later rounds to try to fit whatever position they need to. They don't have to reach later for an edge or a linebacker.
Okay, perfect. And then Nate, I would like you to talk to me about who your Baltimore Ravens are taking at pick 27. Let's see if you and Bob agree.
Yeah, so with the recent Orlando Brown trade, I think it kind of solidified the fact for me that the Ravens are taking a wide receiver in the first round. if they just had one draft pick in the first round, I think it was a toss-up between offensive line, wide receiver, and edge. But I think now that they made this trade and they're replacing Orlando Brown with Villanueva, they're definitely going to stick with wide receiver and with one of these two picks. And Rashad Bateman's still on the board. Rashad Bateman is my pick. He's my wide receiver 3 in this class, and a guy that can play inside, outside. And believe it or not, they're not looking for an outside receiver. Marquise Brown plays outside, and I mean they still got Miles Boykin, I guess, but they're looking for a slot guy. I mean, they got Devin Duvernay, who they picked in the 3rd round. They were pretty excited about, but Bateman offers that versatility to play both, and is just a guy that's going to get open. He's a guy that, I thought about another wide receiver here, Terrace Marshall, but with Bateman on the board, I think it was a pretty easy pick for me.
Bob?
So I actually went and gave you guys an edge with Azeez Ojulari. Straight up pass rushing edge, doesn't really offer much in run defense. He's a smaller frame, definitely your typical speed rusher. And then, I don't have a ton to add on. I hate that you went wide receiver because I wanted a wide receiver for my team, but it's sad that you want to see your wide receivers 3 fantasy value tank in Baltimore.
I don't believe that at all.
Someone's got to catch it.
That's right? What they said about A.J. Brown, right?
This is true.
I said that about A.J. Brown.
If you give Lamar Jackson an actual wide receiver 1, buy low. That's all I got to say.
There you go.
Not Bateman. Give him someone else.
We good with pick 27 then? We can move on?
Moving on.
Nate, we're going to start with you again because I want Bob to talk about pick 29. So, Nate, who are the New Orleans Saints taking at pick 28?
Yeah, I think the Saints have a team that they can, kind of take this pick here. Caleb Farley. We have the back concerns, but he's a really good player. They stop the slide here. They pick him up. He just has so much upside if he's healthy, and it's kind of a steal at this late in the draft to get this kind of cornerback, especially with a premium on cornerbacks in this league. So I think it's an easy pick when they get here. They might have some worries, but this late in the first round, at pick 28, these first round picks aren't as valuable as the early first round picks. You're more willing to take a swing on a guy that has some question marks.
All right, Bob.
And then, so I went with Joe Tryon, edge out of Washington, I believe. Not a player I'm actually all that high on, but again, when I was looking at my board with the players that were left, edge, this is a team that I think would definitely trade down if Caleb Farley wasn't on the board. Joe Tryon, edge. Again, the Saints seem to draft players that I don't like off on film. I think he ends up being more of a real life asset as opposed to a fantasy asset, but that's fine. He's a guy that'll fill in for Trey Hendrickson, who just left. Marcus Davenport hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot since being drafted like 17th overall 3 years ago. So I don't mind this pick for them, addressing a need, and also, like I said, somebody who's probably a decent value at this point.
All right, so Bob, we're going to kick it over to pick 29. Who are your Green Bay Packers taking?
So the Packers are more than likely going to select quarterback Kyle Trask with pick 29.
I like him better.
Got it. I don't know how, but moving on. I got them going with Rashad Bateman. Nate hit on it. I think he'd be a great complement to Davante Adams, somebody who can, down the line, like we did with Jordy Nelson, then Davante Adams took over. Before Jordy, there was Donald Driver, and just have this litany of a great slew of wide receivers that just takes over after the next one. I think Rashad Bateman would be a great person to do that. And yeah, like I said, Nate pretty much touched on all the points with that. Like I said, as long as Green Bay goes linebacker, corner, offensive line, or wide receiver, I won't be disappointed. So, which is exactly why they'll go quarterback. Again.
Bob, also, I want to let you know that the Packers have not selected a wide receiver in the first round since 2002.
Yeah, Javon Walker, I know.
I'm just saying. So, Nate, your thoughts on the Packers pick?
Yeah, I don't know if Bob's going to like my pick here. I did go linebacker, though, so maybe he will. I went with Jamin Davis, how you ever say his first name. Okay. He's a guy that has gotten so much hype in the past 2-3 weeks in NFL circles and
nuts.
NFL media.
Nuts.
It came out absolutely ridiculous pro day. I mean, he ran a 4.4 and just kind of blew people away, put his name up on the first round. He was, I think before, he was looking at like a 3rd round pick, 4th round pick. Now he's being talked about as a 1st round. He's kind of one of these late risers in the draft process. And like I said before, NFL teams love athleticism. They love speed, and these late 1st round picks, you take a swing on the upside. This guy has all the upside in the world with that athleticism. They need a linebacker to kind of get in there and, solidify that position. They have some decent guys there, but, adding another one certainly doesn't hurt. They need to get good linebackers in there. So I think they take the swing on this guy.
Okay. Bob, pick 30. Buffalo Bills.
Real quick, I'm going to touch on Jamon Davis and the issues I have with him. So again, like I said, not my favorite linebacker, and reason being, so you guys know this, not everybody will know this, but I went and did a lot of research into like these guys' college production as starters in college, and Jamon Davis was actually tied for number 1 in terms of IDP 1-2-3 points per game scoring, averaging 20 points a game as a starter. Now, here's some of the issues I have with that. He only did it for 1 year. It was only a 1-year starter. Looking at his stats, he was one of those guys who had more assisted tackles than solo tackles. That's always kind of a red flag for me in terms of how they're going to compete at the next level. Another issue is people are comping him to Darius Leonard. The issue I have with that is the last player to be comped to Darius Leonard was Jermaine Pratt. That was a favorite comp for Daniel Jeremiah, and Daniel Jeremiah has comped Jamon Davis to Darius Leonard. So you see kind of where I have this rounding issues, and the issues with Jermaine Pratt, 1-year starter in college. Darius Leonard was a 4-year starter in college. So I just have some concerns on what his actual output is going to be like when he gets to the NFL level. I just don't know if he has the reps to take off right away, and if he'll kind of catch traction after that. But moving on to pick 30, that's all the trash talking I had for Jamon Davis today. Like you said, he has been a hot button issue on the Twitters, especially in the IDP realm. Guys who are like, oh yeah, I've been high on him since January or whatever. Like, I don't care, dude. But moving on, sorry. Najee Harris is my pick at pick 30, the only running back I have going in the 1st round. Buffalo Bills decided to burn up all their draft capital on running backs for the last 3 years. But they finally find a real one, re-innovate their strategy by, instead of drafting a good offensive lineman, they just decided to try to get a running back that'll run through anybody that gets through the offensive line.
Nate?
I think, not a terrible thing to go with their running back but I'm going defense. They got a good offense already. And honestly, who needs a running back when you got Josh Allen? I mean, they didn't even run the ball last year. I mean, maybe because they didn't have a good running back, but they don't seem like the team that needs to run the ball, They keep playing like they did last year. So let's go on the defensive side. Picking up Jason Owa out of Penn State. Guy who's a project player, but, kind of a good pick here. Like I keep saying, these 1st round picks at the end of the 1st round, you take the upside. He has plenty of upside. Don't like that he didn't have any sacks in this, but hey, he has the athletic profile to succeed, and the Bills can kind of take this guy, and they have a good defense already, at least good pieces on that defense, so they can kind of stick him in there and let him develop.
All right, Nate, you are back on the clock as the Ravens are back on the clock. So pick 31 was owned by the Kansas City Chiefs, as we discussed before. But who are the Ravens taking with their 2nd first-round pick?
Yep, like I said, definitely picking a wide receiver now that we did this trade. And I think the 2nd pick is going to be an edge rusher. I could see a guy like Creed Humphrey sneak in here at this pick. But they really need an edge, man. Really need an edge. Right now, it's like Pernell McPhee and Tyus Bowser. It's not looking great. So they don't have a 2nd round pick this year. They have 2 thirds and 2 firsts. So they have to get a guy here. They don't have the luxury of waiting till the 3rd round for a starter. I'm not sure if this is a pick I'm super happy with, but I'll take it and see what we can do with it. I thought about Al-Jawari. I don't have him on my board as being picked yet, but I'm tired of the Ravens picking undersized guys. So I'm going with Gregory Rousseau. He's didn't have the pro day everyone wanted, but coming in 3 months ago to this NFL draft offseason, he was the edge one on a lot of people's boards. He opted out of the 2020 season. He's a little raw, but he's big. He's bad. Calais Campbell likes him a lot, and I think he's a guy that they can use. They need a guy like this on that defense.
All right, Bob, your thoughts on the Ravens pick here?
Not bad. Gregory Rousseau did not make it into my first round mock, but he's somebody that I'm not high on him. I just, from watching the film, just wasn't a guy I really was overly high on. Kind of, one with athleticism more than with tools. And I think at the NFL level, you're looking for tools with athleticism as opposed to the other way around. So for me, I went back to the offensive line here. After going addressing edge earlier. I'm going with Samuel Cosmi here, who Nate touched on earlier. Just a good underrated prospect, good guy that I think could probably start day one. He's going to have to, but so he could, and he's going to have to. So that's where I went with my Ravens pick here.
All right, so Bob, you're going to start it off with the last pick. That is the defending Super Bowl champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Also, this mock draft I was just looking at had the Eagles trading for this pick and selecting Rashad Bateman, which would be interesting. And also their 12th overall pick was J.C. Horn. And I know one of you guys had him at 12, right? That was Bob. So Bob, if this came to fruition, me as an Eagles fan, J.C. Horn and Rashad Bateman, I would be thrilled. But what do you think is going to happen in pick 32?
So probably the most boring way to end up a first round would be drafting two offensive linemen back to back. And that's exactly what I did. I went Samuel Cosmi 31, and then I went Creed Humphrey, interior offensive lineman. Played center for the most part, and get Ryan Jensen out of there. I'm so sick of seeing him throwing balls over Tom Brady's head and, trying to give my Packers a chance and just bury him already. Don't give teams the other opportunity or false hope. Just get the ball in Brady's hands and go from there. He's a day one starter playing center at this point in the draft. It's boring, but the Tampa Bay Buccaneers won in the trenches, and I think they'll stay winning in the trenches by this pick.
Yep. That's a good pick. It's not a sexy pick, but it's a good pick. I kind of struggled with this pick. They brought back every single starter of their Super Bowl team, which put them in a place to really just go best player available here. They don't really have any needs they have to fill. So it's a great spot to be in for the Buccaneers. I looked at a lot of things. I thought about Creed Humphrey, but you got Tom Brady. You're trying to win more Super Bowls, and you got Chris Godwin, who's on a franchise tag. Mike Evans is getting a little bit older. He's still a solid guy. After that, Scotty Miller, Tyler Johnson. No, we're going to give Brady another weapon because we want to go win another freaking Super Bowl. You pick up the value here. Terrace Marshall going to the Buccaneers. I've seen a lot of people comp him to Chris Godwin. So if they don't want to pay Chris Godwin next year, just slot Terrace Marshall in. This pick would kind of drive Twitter crazy, I think, number one, because fancy Twitter would be really upset because there'd be like not that much fantasy value for Marshall right away day one. But also, man, if you gave Brady another weapon like that, throw those three wide receiver sets out with those three guys. It's just makes us all more angry because it just gets better and better for Brady.
All right. Well, that's it. Look at that last mock draft before the NFL draft. So you guys are still going to be mocking after the draft, of course, correct?
Yeah.
This doesn't have to stop.
We got to do the rookie mocks. We
My
got to do the super flex and the one quarterback and IDP and everything.
Oh, yeah.
We got a big one planned for you guys coming up. So we're just working out all the intangibles to make that happen. A lot of moving parts. But Bob, thank you. We can find you where on Twitter?
You can find me at BobVan_IDP. My DMs are always open, always willing to chat. You have IDP questions if you're new. Feel free to hit those DMs. Always happy to help out.
All right. And Nate, how about yourself?
Yeah, you can follow me at Nate NFL. I'm so excited, man. Thursday is Christmas.
That's right. And you can find him at Buffalo Wild Wings as well.
Buffalo Wild Wings every year.
That's right. Find me on Twitter at Rewind CEO. I'd much rather you follow us on Twitter. The show, I should say, at Dynasty Rewind. And make sure you check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind, where we have all sorts of fantastic stuff. Go into Bob's DMs. He's going to tell you all about it. So until next mock draft, everyone, be kind. Please rewind. Thank you for watching.
Thanks for listening to the Dynasty Rewind. Please make sure you subscribe, rate, and review. And as always, be kind. Please rewind.